Call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. First order of business is to approve the minutes of June 10th. And second, good. Have you folks all read them?
Yes.
Minute for minute.
Minute for minutes?
Yep.
Okay. Rick Hague had sent a correction, and it's kind of listed on this agenda, to the gentleman who was appointed to the cemetery commission would do it until town meeting. We talked about it, but it didn't end up in the minutes.
And to actually list the person's name who resigned, so I can correct those minutes.
I'd like to amend the minutes to reflect that Jay Gorham was appointed to the cemetery commission until next year's town meeting after the end of the term
To fulfill,
to fill,
to what name?
and to fill Carly Sanderson's
Good.
spot.
All right, I'll second that. Okay, any other comments? All right, we are,
I have to vote on the amendment,
Oh.
vote on the original motion.
okay. All those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Opposed? Amendment passes, and the original motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Then we're on to, we would have been on to Ally Driscoll, but she's rescheduled for next meeting on 7/8. Yeah,
With additions and deletions, you just
Yeah.
announcing those. She's not in that.
and the old business will be reported below about the fire department monies and the Cale of Education. Members of the public, we've rescheduled the Connecticut River Valley Flood Commission. And Liza Martin, you're up next.
Wow, that was quick. Here as the keeper of the common, I would like the select board to approve $125 max for buying flowers and liners and soil and so on and so forth. I'm providing the additional baskets, and Laura Richardson has been maintaining things and providing flowers up until this point. The most recent flowers she got donated, so it'll require fewer flowers. However, that's what I'm asking for.
So I make a motion that we grant $125. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion?
Are they gonna go around the vehicles?
Yes, I've got 5 more baskets, so there'll be one in each section. And Ally contributed some liners, and between me and Laura, we're gonna come up with something to fill the liners, but we need a few more liners as well. And they'll be in patience this time instead of the proposed geraniums and marigolds, because the donation was 2 baskets filled with impatiens, which look nice. You can see them from the road. So that should work well.
So we have a vote or any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, you got it.
Thank you.
You're opposed?
Right.
Too late.
What's the method of reimbursement, and do we want to try to do that in fiscal year 25? Meaning it would have to happen tomorrow or Friday.
Tomorrow, not the day after tomorrow?
Tomorrow or Friday?
Okay, because I have 3 appointments tomorrow.
Right.
Friday I can do.
Okay, just get it to Elaine by then, and then it can be book kept for this year.
Okay,
And
and
we should
then,
instruct her to
We
pay
will.
that.
And we'll also remember that the town does not pay taxes.
Yes,
And
yes.
we do have a tax number if you need it, but people like Duttons know us,
all right,
okay?
so do I come to somebody for petty cash, or credit card, or a check, what?
You can go to Elaine usually.
For
Right.
petty cash.
Yeah.
Because
That's how I
for
usually
petty
do.
cash, it's just a little more than the
Mhm.
figure I quoted you, so she doesn't want to be without it for very long.
Yeah,
Okay,
all right, or you could give it to Elaine and she'll cut a check,
great.
so. All right, did we vote?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, so we're all set. You can stay for the meeting or you can go sit in the pool somewhere.
Find me a pool, I'll go right over.
Okay, now we are on to Andy with your electronic door pages.
Okay, I did circulate, hopefully everybody had time to read the note that I passed out. I wanted to try to keep this to a minimum so I didn't have to go through all the details, and so everybody would be at least caught up to speed with some of the history and have the proposal in front of you. What it comes down to is trying to automate the front doors so that they can open on a handicap push button. The current doors are 30 inches wide, and that was one of the choices, would be to remove that entire front entry and go with kind of like a storefront aluminum entry to get 36-inch wide doors, which would be more standard today, but that would really take away from the look of the town hall. And it would be a very modern look, which is we're trying not to do. So, and then you would probably want to just automate one side, not both. But in this case, to get the clearance, you have to automate both sides so that they open together. And to be able to open, they have to be dogged. I guess it's dogged or undogged, I forget. They have to be unlatched. And there's both a horizontal lock that gets thrown, and then sitting here, the one on the right has a vertical latch because it's two doors. And so that one also has to have an electronic lift on it. So when you push the button, it lifts that up, releases the two panic bars, basically. The motors would come on and open up to an opening. Then they would close back up. Normal able people coming through, you could just use the door, like normal fashion. Hopefully, especially in the wintertime, hopefully we wouldn't have people pushing the handicap button, because you have both doors opening, you're going to lose more heat. The inner doors do not require an operator. I suppose it would be nice for easy passage, but they don't require it, so we didn't go ahead and get a quote on that. I do want to say that it's been I mentioned in the note, it's been a tough process. I was really surprised that given the amount of places we circulated the RFP, how poor the response was. And we really hoped that we'd get a general contractor that would be willing to do more than just, a single part of it. And door operators are the most unusual or technical. In fact, our architect initially told us that he didn't know of anybody that had hardware that would work on 30-inch doors, because most of the equipment was wider. He did find somebody, but they were $23,000 or something like that. We have this outfit in Keene, which is a division of Overhead Door, which is a name I think most people know. So, a large reputable company. And also local in that they're Keene. They did the doors for Grace Cottage when they did the emergency entrance there. So they do work in this area. They are available for service and that type of thing. The quote spells out the different components by number and all of that. I really want to think more in terms of the operators and the panic bar hardware. And then there's a small transformer, because the electric locks are 12 volt. The other thing that's not included here is we would have to run a 15 amp or a 20 amp. 15 amp is the minimum. 20 amp circuit from back in the corner probably, because this panel here has a lot of knob and tube still in it, and to not have to try to fish it. And it's also back next to where the furnace is. So getting up into it would be somewhat difficult. So it seems easier to go right clean and run a wire from there back through. Would remove the fascia trim on the door, and we'll try to run the 110 up behind that in BX. That's not quoted. Have not gotten an electrician's quote as of yet.
Is that the 2,000 that you
That was called a wild ass guess.
Okay.
I'm not an electrician. I've done some work with electricians on guessing at what that would cost.
I have a couple of questions. Would the door, it sounds like the door will look and operate exactly the same passkey, passcode.
We stop you on that one. It comes with a key lock. There's some chance with this particular set of hardware that that would work with the keypad that we have now, but they're not certain.
Okay.
There is a more expensive option that they could put on for the panic hardware, or they're more certain it would work. So I guess it's a question of how important is it to make sure that we stay with a, you know, a numerical pad versus going back to a key lock on it. I mean,
And the other question that I had is, if the planning commission gets quotes for the rest of the ADA, is there a possibility that somebody could say, I wouldn't have done the doors that way, I want them to be different?
I don't think so. One of the nice things about the project is that it does subdivide fairly well. One thing, you know, so doing the ramp separate from the doors isn't a problem. Actually, sequencing would be a problem if you had both contractors there at the same time. Then they'd be running into each other. So doing them sequentially from a scheduling point of view actually is beneficial. The one item that we originally had grouped together that I think in hindsight we might break out is the railing. There's a lot of the people that would do the ramp aren't really interested in getting involved in doing the railings. That is another kind of specialty type item. And the bathroom, it can be freestanding and done separately. That does involve, of course, to get into that's electrical and plumbing and carpentry in doing the bathroom. But simple electrical, simple plumbing, but you would have 3 trades involved.
So we don't have a motion, we have a lot of conversation, how do we want to proceed?
I'm just a little bit confused. You said the total cost would be around $13,132. That would include the panic hardware, the wiring, the safety sensors. So this bid right here is just for what's on here for $5,772. I see that's listed there.
The panic hardware and I didn't mention the sensors, but the sensors they recommend as well. Now, like many people that bid, they put the headline on the lowest number they could, and then put the other things as additional items.
Are these, so my confusion is, this is all, we don't know how much the wiring costs, so are we trying to keep this, approve the bid so that we can keep this price or something, since you didn't get any more bidders? I'm confused if we don't have all of the options and we don't know how much the wiring is gonna be. I don't understand how we're gonna have this.
I'm not anticipating it's going to be hard to line somebody up for the wiring, but the $13,152 covers the materials from door control. And wiring would be additional. I mean, as you see in their quote, they excluded wiring. I did expect them to include wiring, they did not.
I'm still confused on your point about the 13,000.
Approving
And then-
5,000 or we
and
approving
then-
13,000?
Yeah, and
I
then
didn't really
5,700, so it's between, when I first looked at it, I thought it was about 8,000, and now I think it's about 15,000.
including the rest.
Right, just when you kind of give it.
If you look down here in the operating, they have the text there, they tell you what those extra numbers are.
Is it this one?
These are the additions.
It's in small print.
5, 6,
Yeah,
7, 8.
obviously.
You need the spectacles.
No,
Andy, it's Sean Morrow from West Townsend. I have a quick question, if everyone can hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay, is there a service contract or would any maintenance have to be like ad hoc? Like, would it have to be done at the time, or is there a service contract with the provider to be able to fix it in an emergency or even just a routine inspection?
There is not a service contract. It would be, if it requires service, we pay for the service as needed.
Thank you.
Okay.
One of the things is that it will, from a service point of view, is how often they're going to be used. I would not expect them to get a lot of use, but when they're there, and they're needed, then, so
And it'll function.
yes, but I'm hoping it doesn't end up with a lot of service because it's not going to have a high use of traffic.
But I think a lot of people, like when you go into the hospital, hit that button whether they need it or not.
Yeah.
I just don't know how the board wants to proceed. Should we make a motion and have a vote to accept it or not accept it? Is that?
I don't see this as the complete package. I mean, we're talking $5,700 here, and then I keep hearing this $13,000 number, so.
One question I would have, in order to open the rough opening for the doors, are we gonna have to dig into the wall?
No, doing this, we're leaving the doors exactly the way they are. It will be those doors, that transom, those side lights. I'm saying, maybe I confused you. I'm saying the alternative would be to rip out the entire opening and replace the
Have a
entire
riverbed market door.
All right.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy with the work you've done. I just am very uncertain about the figures.
About the electrical part.
Well, the electrical and the 6,000 and the 14,000, when I see those, you're saying that they highlighted that 57 and that's what I hung on to. So the 13 was a shock when I read in more detail. So
Their point is that theoretically you could operate them without putting the electric latch and panic hardware on there. But what you'd have to do with the existing panic hardware is when you want it to be in use, you'd have to get out the little key, push the handle in, turn the little nut in there on both sides. You'd have to make sure that the vertical latch was, free. So you'd have to do that on both sides to make it work.
Mhm.
And I just don't see that happening every day.
No, I mean, the way it works now is somebody knocks on Lenka's window and she runs in the hall and lets them in and
Or if we know that somebody's coming.
yeah, it happens once every 2 years, so. Board, how shall we proceed?
I just think it's the way that this estimate is written. It's saying we propose hereby to furnish material and labor complete in accordance with above specifications for the sum of $5,772, but then there's up there, the different add-ons that I don't know why
That
that's.
hardware, $6,590.
Yeah, I don't know why that's not just all spelled out and are given the total and that's that.
Is it listed as options?
That's
Yes.
what's not clear about it to me.
Yeah, they're listed as options, but they're options that fit what we want to do with it, I believe.
Right, but usually when we make the motion, we say, we approve the bid, but we would only approve it for the $5,772 at first glance, but it seems like
The bid is really the
it's
13
really the
and
13
change.
and change, and that's where the confusion was.
Well,
occurring.
The $5,772 does not get what I've described. You would have to go out, have somebody manually engage it each time. And currently, the little screw nut there
Doesn't work,
doesn't work.
right.
So that would have to be fixed, and I don't know whether that means replacing that or whether
Well, we
that
do
can be
have a
fixed.
key option and we have a passcode, so we can get in and out of the building successfully.
Andy, could you go back when Ally was asking about the passcode? It sounded like you were saying there could be a key option or some other key option. I just didn't really understand.
Okay, as it's, the basic way they bring it in with the hardware they quoted is with a key option.
And this is with the 6590 included, right? This is
Correct,
the full package.
13,000,
The full package.
172 or whatever. They are not certain whether, because they didn't really look at the keypad we have here to see whether that will function with this hardware. Possibility it might, not certain. They do have another, and I don't know how much, did he tell you how much more the other hardware is?
Not yet, I can get it very quickly.
Okay. There is another set of hardware that would be covered in the 6590, that type of hardware. It's slightly more expensive, but they're very certain that the keypad would work. So it's a question of, you know, you either take the risk, depending on how important the keypad is. If the keypad is an absolute, then we've got to go with the next step up in hardware.
So then it sounds like even if we do approve the quote with the add-ons and such, we may still actually need to go above that because we might need to go for more expensive locking hardware.
Only
It
if,
doesn't work.
only if the keypad is
Right,
a
but we
deal
don't know
breaker.
that. But we don't know that yet.
Right.
So what if we table this until next meeting when we get more information? I mean, what is the board think?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind seeing a estimate for the electrical, since there's a couple more weeks to look into it.
It's Sean again. Can I ask Andy one more question before you guys close out?
Go ahead.
All right, Andy, is there any way that the new system prevents egress from the building in an emergency?
No.
Whether it's a failure or anything like that, of a screw key or of an electronic thing, is there a way that everybody is able to get out of the building if there's an emergency?
No, it is rated panic hardware, so if you hit the panic button, it would open the doors. It doesn't get resistance from the operators in that case.
Well, I guess you were talking like a 3 or 4 port locking mechanism, and that is kind of maybe adds to question about egress in an emergency situation if there's heat or something locking that up. So I guess I just wanted to put that point out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a question of Andy, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So has it been a problem trying to pin down an electrician to get a figure? Or
I haven't
I'll
even
have,
asked.
huh?
I haven't even asked him.
All right.
Okay, so
That's part of the reason for this.
should we
meeting,
give them some
to
guidance on what we'd like to see next meeting? Who would like to say something first?
I would like to get some clarity on the locking, if they could just come and maybe give us, I mean, will they not have an answer until they get into the door installation?
I might be able to get them some numbers off of that block.
Okay.
They've been here, I think, twice. They didn't know that we specifically wanted to keep that, so.
Correct. They do know what that lock is, if you don't mind my speaking.
Oh, no, go ahead. They do have the model number on that?
They have photographs of it and they know what it is,
Okay.
that key,
Keypad.
the keypad lock. So when I originally asked for the quote, I did not specify whether or not you needed or wanted to retain that. The one thing that occurs to me, if we put all new hardware on it, you're gonna have that old lock right in the middle of the new hardware. Which to me, I would either go for a new lock that does the same thing if you want that function, or eliminate the old lock and put on just a key. But that's not a decision I could make, so I just went for optional. The 3-point hitch assembly, which is the additional $6,000, that is all automated now, and the other wasn't. So we could have the doors open and close if you set everything up correctly. But if you don't set it up correctly each day, as we're discussing, then the hardware should be changed to automated so that the whole thing works automatically like you expect for a handicap situation.
And the one you're proposing, you lock with the key at night?
Yes.
Okay.
From the inside, it would probably be just a thumb. I don't know that it's a double key. That's usually not the case because that could restrict someone getting out.
Okay.
So
what
most
should
likely
we-
it's
So do we get like clear figures on the all different?
complete.
Yeah, the full package, a
Soup
full,
to nuts.
yeah,
Okay, so now
And
I
if there's any, like,
know that. and I can-
differences between the locking mechanisms to just like spell that out to what the different, there's gonna be more expensive hardware that might need to, can we just get that figure?
Which I now can probably get in 24 hours now that I know exactly what you're interested in. As far as the electrician, I haven't tried yet because we didn't know how far this was gonna go before I started bringing in. I'd like to get a couple of bids on it if I can.
It's gonna be the busy time for them.
It is, it's a busy time, but I think we want to get it done, so let's get it done. And I understand that we're going to be, with Corey's effort there, the door's going to be painted on the outside, at least repainted. And just one of the questions they've been discussing, aside from having our nice new hardware on the door, which will look wonderful, it's aged bronze color. The railings out there could be painted the same color as the door is being painted, because it's a dark green, and the dark green would melt ice and stuff off the railings, which was one of my concerns. That's why black is so popular. It has a tendency of keeping film of ice off of railings, because of course it conducts heat, it attracts heat from the sun.
So thank you, Planning Commission, and we'll see you at next,
Is there any other information that's being sought before the next meeting?
a definitive price and what the locks would look like, and could you keep the pad? And I don't think so.
And the electrical.
That was the, like soup to nuts price.
Yep.
Yeah. So, thank you for all your work. And now we'll go on to Sherwood canceled because of the heat and the headache. Ally is rescheduled, and do we have any
Can I
correspondence?
just add on Sherwood's, he sent an email saying that he couldn't make it back, but that the group that's working on the emergency management plan has been meeting and is making progress and has fulfilled every requirement so far needed from the state in preparation for submitting the plan. So it's not that nothing's happening, it's just that.
Do you know who this group is?
Me,
Okay.
Sherwood, a woman named Pamela, who I will, do you know her?
I don't know her, but I've heard of her.
She went to the different or something.
Yeah.
And then
Thank you.
our new local aid coordinator, Amy, who has a lot of experience setting up shelters and in the medical field. It's been very informative. So we're meeting on Thursday. And we met, I want to say 2 weeks ago.
Okay, any questions or comments on that? All right, any correspondence?
No.
And then Rob, would you read us the warrants?
Make a motion to pay the warrants starting with number 1 payroll, $15,082.31. Number 2 payroll tax, the amount of $6,502.13. Number 3 general fund, in the amount of $8,363.85. Number 4 highway fund, in the amount of $92,726.72, for a total of $122,675.01.
Second.
Okay, discussion? Number 4 is tied because if you didn't notice, there's $60K for the gravels in there.
Should I look at it?
Thanks, Will.
Right. That's personal.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Highway.
Good evening. We had a little event on Thursday night. We had a beaver dam let go up on top of Acton Hill, and it wiped out a pretty decent portion of the road. We were able to get the road open Friday. We still have a little work left to do up there. Good thing is that because the guys are in there crushing, I was able to have them just run me some straight crusher run. And it didn't cost us I had to get 3 loads of stuff from Sosano's and probably have to get some bigger stone at some point. So, other than labor and trucking and fuel, it didn't cost us any materials really to repair the road. What else did I have?
What about the beaver dam? Is that something that, if it's on private property?
It's yeah, I mean, I don't even know how far up is it off the road?
It is behind the small log cabin before Moose Pond, and it is basically under the power line.
Yeah.
It's within the easement.
Whose property? Orange or?
Tracy.
Tracy. Oh, I mean, I don't know how we control that.
I'm surprised the lower Beaver Pond held as much water as it did, and it hasn't broken.
One now, yeah.
So it
flashed over
It went from one Beaver Pond to another.
Okay.
I don't think, if that one goes, do you think that'll cause us damage?
That's what, a 6-foot culvert underneath the road.
Might take a second, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
We'll keep an eye on it. Truck 4 is at the body shop. It was towed on Wednesday. I have not spoken with Jim or Ed Johnson from ATG on if they've had a chance to look at it yet. What else did I have? Oh, Billy was requesting that he's gonna have, I think, 2 days of vacation left. He's on vacation this week. He was wondering if he could roll those 2 days
Over into next year.
over into next year. I believe it's 2, somewhere, it's 2 or 3, something like that.
Board decision, but go ahead and we'll come back to that. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Alright.
Did the gravel crushing? get
Oh, yes,
completed,
yes,
or-
Basin was able to actually get right to us this year, because they were supposedly gonna come in July, but they had a project canceled, so they are in the pit now crushing and making lots of headway. And, it kind of, like I said, worked out in our favor, because they were able to make us some material right on the spot to fix that washout, so. And that's obviously why the warrant is as high as it is, because we're paying this year's portion of the gravel crushing before the end of this fiscal year.
Should we make a motion about at least 2 days? And is that-
We approved it.
You could already paid the entire.
But we should,
We allowed it in the past.
right, but we
Maybe
should make a
entire
motion, discuss and approve.
No, I'm sorry.
We have in the past. I mean, there was a policy made under Kathy Heggie that I think it was 1 or 2 weeks maximum could be carried over, but it had to be used up in a certain amount of time.
The next year.
So
Let's make a motion that we roll over Billy's 2 days and get a second.
second.
And then all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So the ayes have it, and then we move on to our treasurer's report, which is a couple of balances. We have, in a big account, $538,324.94, and then we have the slush fund or the swing account of $30,000. And then, it's included this time the certificates of deposit, so. We all have it, but
There's a packet.
the audience is willing to look at it, it's hard to understand all the time, but, and then I'll move on to the town clerk's report. In the first 2 weeks of June, Alexa brought in $963.50. Then we move on to, the chair's report, just to make you folks aware that there's Wyndham Regional Planning Public Forums, July 22nd and their 24th in Brattleboro. Connie and Nick, was it, met with the Army Corps of Engineers, and they might want to tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So we met with Army Corps, is that 2 weeks ago now? 2 weeks ago?
We're gonna have,
Maybe we can have, yeah.
but
Just to kind of start a conversation with them about the whole, what are we gonna do about water-based recreation at the lake. And essentially, it was just that the option for dredging the lake being the most accessible option is also incredibly expensive. And the last time they did it, and the next year was the 2023 floods. And so then that just kind of undid the great kind of work that they did the year before. And so it's kind of a really hard sell for a federal agency that doesn't have as much funds, especially not funds dedicated towards recreation. We had talked a little bit about some other options that they're looking at, some pilot programs going on, like essentially we've seen like those robot lawnmowers that just kind of go in a path and do a whole lawn. Same idea, it just dredges the lake pretty slowly, but it goes on its own. It's not exactly something that's like up and running, it's just something that's in pilot phases and kind of select Army Corps projects around the country. So we, talk about that as a potential that could, that they could look into and see if they can get some approval to use that here. But really we started talking more about what are some other things we can do to support them since they have a hiring freeze. They cannot hire their seasonal staff that are maintaining the lake, the recreation area, which is why they have such reduced hours for the summer. So they definitely accept volunteers. So if anyone is interested in volunteering, they have plenty of volunteer opportunities. We talked a bit about that, and we also talked about some other recreation alternatives that maybe aren't water-based, but are some other things. Disc golf, I think, is something they already have going there, but it perhaps, like the Pinnacle Association wants to kind of partner and help develop some trail networks or something. Mountain hiking trails, things of that nature that they've had some success with at Ball Mountain Dam. Anything else?
So my takeaway was, I thought it was a very informative, very interesting meeting. My takeaway is that they do not feel that they are required to give water-based recreation, although it was very much part of the original master plan. There's a requirement to recreate, but there's not a requirement on water-based recreation. And they are really stumped on what to do with the reservoir part of the dam. But the fact that it doesn't affect the operation of the dam is the important thing for them, right? Once the silt begins to affect the dam, then they act upon it. But because it affects water-based recreation, they're not as concerned. We met with the engineer and the regional guy and then the local person, Alex. And they are, they're spending a lot of time talking about what to do with the recreation. I thought it was an interesting meeting, and legally they are not obligated to deal with the town, but they recognize that a partnership is pretty important with the town, and they would like, there will be more opportunities for public forum, but there is an interest in meeting with the governing body of towns and just to have more of an informational conversation. So that is one thing that came out of the meeting.
So if you took the recreation and just eliminated all of the recreation, it was put there to hold water back. Well, if it doesn't hold any water anymore, you're greatly increasing your chances of having it overflow because it has minimal capacity compared to what it should have.
So according to them, it still has its capacity because, and again, this is
Because it drains from the top,
probably that's
is what they're saying, and that's why it has silt. All mountain dam drains from the bottom. So it sucks all the silt out of the bottom of the lake and sends it down the river. Townsend doesn't have that, but still, it's filled in to the point.
Well, I've asked numerous times, and they have said it's not affecting the operation of the dam.
Yes.
And then
I'm not gonna attempt to explain it because what they have assured us that the volume capacity of the reservoir is the same as it has been, regardless of the silt being in there.
don't know why that is, but
I feel like I kind of understand it, but not enough to explain it right now.
I also feel like it's an embarrassment to Townsend. You look online about Townsend and the Townsend Lake still comes up and people still travel here to go swimming and go, what the heck, you know? And when we gave them how many farms, originally I have a list of how many farms were given up, how many pieces of property were eminent domain to create this thing. And their big thing then was people in landlocked states need water recreation. So,
Excuse me, Ally, what was the original agreement when that was constructed? Was there going to be a water recreation area that was to be preserved? Or was it until it just,
I'll give you the
Wait.
papers and you can have your lawyer look at them. I don't know. They talked about the water recreation, they had brochures, you know, with the water recreation, I mean, very idyllic, people fishing and everything else. And what, was it legal in perpetuity? I'll bet you not, because their lawyers were smarter than us probably. But
I know we've just gone over it in the town plan and we all kind of look at each other. Do we leave this in? Do we take it out? Are we going to remain hopeful? Is anything ever going to happen?
No.
Yeah, I think you're
Well,
right.
I do think that it is, I personally recommend that the select board meet with these three individuals because I found it very enlightening. And we raised all the stuff and I don't know, I can get a little aggressive sometimes, but I was pretty direct saying that we're here because we have an interest and you are affecting our interest. Again, they did not, there is no legal obligation, but they want to work with
they
us.
say that.
And bet you that's true.
It probably is true, but you know.
But I do think it is worth us, or not us, but as the legal body, having more of a conversation.
What I want to see is the next time that we meet, for the people that work during the day, and when we go to these meetings, we don't get paid, is why don't we do it when we're out of work and those guys can stay on?
They would have come tonight. They would have come,
If someone had said, I want to come, but I can't do the 3 o'clock time, I would have rescheduled it in a minute. I didn't hear that, and I'm happy to do that if we have an interest in the next meeting.
and these people were happy to come tonight and present, but we felt with the end of the year and a very full agenda, let's put it until next time. Andy?
I have no doubt that they probably are not legally required, but it was a primary inducement to the towns that they were going to get water-based recreation. The benefit of the flood control is the towns in Massachusetts and Connecticut.
I agree.
And they've gotten a great deal of benefit. There's a lot, you go down along the Connecticut there, it no longer floods. And that's because of the Townshend Dam and others on the Connecticut Valley. As you pointed out, their master plan and then their brochures and their website today, if you look at it, you'd think, oh my gosh, there's great water recreation and swimming there. What a wonderful spot. And even if you go back in some of the historical documents, they used to get 200,000 visitors per year would attend. I don't know what the current number is, but
I think they said
it's closer to zero.
Yeah.
So from an economic draw, as well as, because it was a lot of people that weren't necessarily local residents that were going and using it. And so that was an economic benefit to the community as well.
Townsend Lake was a selling point for the development of Townsend Acres.
Yep. I do want to say that this is a political process. So it is a matter of how much of a political notice one can make out of it. And there are things they could do they don't want to do. Dredging a swimming area was never going to be effective. They have to dredge the entire bed of the lake. Another option would be to raise the entire holding level. So if they were to raise the holding level up 5 feet, That would change where the swimming area is, but you would have better water recreation, but they'd lose their capacity. So some of the downriver folks wouldn't get quite the same benefit. So there are some other options that could be looked at.
Years ago, we went through the whole thing and we met with a whole bunch of people, and I know Kathy and Craig Hunt went down and met with the colonel, and that didn't go very well. And when we met with them up here, they basically told us that they needed to do a complete entire hydraulic engineering study on it in order to dredge any more than
Right.
the swing, like what you're saying.
That's
And
a
it's
good
like-
place to-
And it's like, I said to the guy at the time that there's nothing that's changed underneath. That's, you know,
area.
silt it hasn't changed any. And he said it still doesn't matter. And it's like, that would cost an enormous amount to do a hydraulic study on that whole Townshend Dam.
There's no doubt that it would be millions of dollars to dredge the entire thing, so just from perspective.
Oh, yeah.
And there's just what, 15, 20 feet of silt? Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I know people that have motorboated on it and water skied on it and
Learn to
been
swim.
around on a pontoon on it, and it's like, now you look at it, you can ride a
Liza has
bicycle on it.
question in here. That's okay. Liza?
Mustn't the Army Corps of Engineers have some sort of legal representation? And wouldn't it behoove the town to have the town attorney speak with whoever legally represents the Army Corps of Engineers to iron this out? So somebody could say, no, we have no obligation to do it, or on the other side of the coin, we say, yes, you do it.
My one personal opinion in that is that from the taxpayer's standpoint, how much money do we stand going up against a behemoth compared to us when we know what we're probably gonna get, and we only get, what is it, 56 from them every year, and it's never gone up, and it's,
What wouldn't two lawyers talking about it at least answer the question?
She's saying that the benefits could be minimal compared to the cost. So it's gonna cost us a lot in lawyer fees in order to even remotely start to that.
yeah, that Connie has a comment that
I
might
think
help
that, I think that
clarify.
if folks should start by reading the master plan, and we have copies of it here, because it's very informative. The issue of the political process, I agree that us having a conversation with either the Connecticut Valley River Flood Commission or the Army Corps of Engineer, they're gonna be very informative. They're probably not gonna move much, right? Because they know their legal positions and they're gonna stand by it. I agree that it is a political process that could move the dial. I did not get any response when I reached out to all of our representatives. So it would take, I think, some decision from some group to try to build a campaign on that.
Lady at one point had, and this is hearsay, but had promised that he'd put an earmark in for it. And that, that's quite a few years back.
What about if somebody from the select board and somebody from the planning commission sits down together and reads what we have here already and makes a proposal? I don't know, it's a thought, it's from one board member, not the full board.
Are you saying that you wanna sit down and read it with somebody?
I will, or Connie can, or. You
I mean, I
can
sort
sit
of-
on-
I'm happy to read through I've never seen our agreement or whatever on it, so.
I can get you a copy.
One last thing, food for thought, and perhaps the select board can discuss this and actually make a ruling or give us a formal opinion at the next meeting, is based on the discussion that's happened here tonight. Should the Townshend Selectboard ask the Army Corps of Engineers to take all that off their website if it doesn't exist anymore? And should we actually take it out of the town plan if it's not going to exist anymore? Because we just look kind of stupid at the present time.
I don't know the answer to those
No,
questions. Part of me feels like we're accepting defeat if we do that.
5 year, 7 year,
Seven.
What?
The town plan.
8 years.
Oh, wait, excuse me.
This process is
And
probably.
you'll be seeing it before, well, probably in September.
The
So
master
before.
plan,
I would personally
it
say
doesn't go into effect until 2028, I think. the new one, they were 27?
27, because they have their final round of public
Right.
feedback next fall, the 26. I think 27.
So how about we have Connie and Andy read the master plan and report back?
Sure.
Is that okay
Bring
with the
snacks.
I think that, I mean, if they're gonna pay Connie, I'd like to pay Connie to do stuff that's gonna benefit us. Reading the master plan is
You want me
really.
to do more for free?
No, I mean, I've already read it, I mean, I can read it again.
Well, I'm just saying that Connie has plenty of things on her plate.
I know she
We have to
does.
start reading stuff that's.
Well, then who's gonna work with Andy?
Is there an interest
Well,
in,
Andy's been reading for 70 years on his own. Have him give it to him and let him read it on his own.
It's fine, I'll do a regular billing rate, no problem.
is there an interest in
He didn't hear that.
the three entities from the Army Corps of Engineers?
It's not gonna go anywhere.
I think
mean,
it
I
has to
think
be-
we're just pissing in the
Now, I've
wind.
read the master plan, you're talking about the agreement, but because I've read,
No, the master.
oh, I read the master plan.
Yeah. And then we do have a copy of the original agreement.
That I have not seen.
Okay.
I just want Connie to do stuff that's gonna benefit the board and the town, not stuff that's just we're giving her something to do.
Well, I want to be clear that we did do something, right? We had,
No, I'm saying.
right, we've put together a petition, we put together a public statement. They saw that, they recognized it. We then asked for a meeting, they met with us. And I think Steve is pointing out, which is, where do we go next? I mean, it would be, maybe our elected officials are the ones that we should be hounding. I don't know.
And maybe that's not coming from us.
Yeah.
To Rob's point, right? If we're gonna be spending taxpayer resources, maybe that's members of the
So
public.
you'll
that's
let us
not
know
really
what you
those
think
numbers,
about your reading efforts.
but the only thing I will say about continued contact with the Army Corps is we can still talk about other recreation options and other ideas that is definitely something that they're interested in, that maybe are not water-based, which is maybe not what everyone wants to talk about, but there could be other things that could still bring people in to kind of increase the usage of the space. So as far as like, where do we go next? That is another place that we could take that conversation.
Okay, shall we move the meeting along? There's many pages right here, folks, that Connie has spent a lot of hours on. And,
Do you want me to just
yeah,
summarize this?
if you would like to, then I may chime in since I've spent many hours on it as well.
So this, in your packet, is a summary of the end of year, how we're ending up fiscal year '25. And this comes out of a meeting we had on last Friday with the treasurer and Nemrick, our accounting program company. And Ally and I felt that it was important for the select board sort of to get a summary because there also is some questions that we need to also discuss and decide how we want to move forward on. But for the group that doesn't have the document, it's included in that packet on the table if anybody wants to read it. So general fund, again, I don't want to go, I'm not going to read this word by word, you have it in front of you. So general fund, we are running at a deficit, which caught us by surprise because our expenditures are below budget. The problem is we have not collected enough in taxes. And we are running into, they did not call it a crisis. They said you should be very concerned about the amount of taxes you did not collect in the 4 quarters of fiscal year '25. So that is a discussion that we have to have because that was kind of actually surprising to us.
The communication has been lacking, and we had, at budget time, all of us really fine-tuned the budget. So we knew we weren't gonna have a huge surplus, but we knew we were budgeting correctly, in our opinion. And then, when we had $12,000 worth of surplus, we said, good, we've budgeted prudently, we've spent prudently, we've got $12,000. Oh, no, you don't, because you're $225,000 behind in taxes. And that was a surprise to us. We've had no communication about it. Should we have known? Maybe if we were the treasurer, back when I was the treasurer, we did it with accrual, not with a cash basis, so it was different. Connie and I were both sitting there with our mouth open. We called the delinquent tax collector, we got her to agree to put $45,000 of the monies that she had already collected and wasn't going to give in until July 1st. And into this close of this year, so that we wouldn't have a deficit. So
where we're at is that we do have a deficit in the general fund for basically two reasons. One, the money comes into the general fund and the general fund's obligated to pay its obligations first, for instance, the highway department. So the highway department got all its money, but what is left over funds the general fund. So even though we did really well on our expenses and monitoring our budgets, the fact that we didn't collect enough in taxes means we are running a deficit in the general fund.
well, we no longer have a deficit because of the influx of the 45.
So I think we still do have that.
Why? We'll talk about that later.
So I don't think that got posted yet to the, in the reports that I ran. So we have enough cash. There is no concern about not being able to pay bills. We certainly have enough cash to get us through to the first tax collection in August of this year. But in terms of our revenue, we should be concerned about the uncollected taxes. And so that is something that we can talk more about, which is how, are there ways to try to increase that uncollected taxes? Do we increase tax sales, or do we try to engage in some way with taxpayers?
Do we have like a lot of people that are delinquent with the taxes and that's what's swaying this, or we spent too much money, or what do we?
No,
Because
We're
I'm
under
looking at
budget.
the end of the year stuff here, and it's,
We're under budget
yeah.
in terms of what we've spent. We haven't collected enough.
Yeah, but is that because people are delinquent, or is it
Yes.
because we're not
Yes.
charging
We
enough?
have 225,000 in
They're
delinquent
doing
taxes that
unpaid.
have not been collected. That is the largest amount in 9 years.
Yeah.
Then after that, it says, the delinquent tax collector anticipates depositing 45,000 this current week.
I think it has
So that'll
already
bring
been
that
done.
225 down to 180.
Yeah.
But it's still 180,000
Yeah.
delinquent taxes that are not collected by the end of this fiscal year.
So when we asked, so there's, the fact that we were caught off guard illustrates that there's something that's not getting reported to us for us to be able to act upon it. And whose responsibility is it to get it to us or for us to produce? So we have to figure out that process so that we don't get caught off guard again, and so we can be proactive. And when we talked about how do we get proactive on collecting unpaid taxes, the thing that came up was increasing tax sales. And the delinquent tax collector is working on her next round of tax sales. And then I was suggesting that maybe we explore other ways of engaging people to either remind them or to, interact with them on paying their unpaid taxes through mailings, through calling, that kind of thing, ways of exploring that. So that is the general fund.
That's Becky's job. Her job is to make a payment plan, and all delinquent taxes need to be paid within 12 months.
Yep.
And that's her policy.
Yep.
So something's wrong with her policy.
but there are many there that are not, even like ones, well, you'll read when you see them, I don't want to mention names.
So we had asked Becky, Becky was more than willing to come up and, and deposit any money that she had. I think she's more than willing to work with us. We've never engaged with her. I mean, I haven't, in
Well,
my 4 years here. I've
Right,
never
and when you
engaged
talk
with her.
about Connie spending time on things she doesn't need to spend time on, running all these copious reports, trying to catch things that we're not even sure what we're looking for just because we haven't been communicated to, is spending a lot of hours.
I think, for number one, Part C, number 5, the select board needs to come up with a procedure on delinquent taxes, I agree with that. Who notifies and gives a report to the select board, that feels like the delinquent tax collector could possibly give us a report after each.
She does.
Yeah.
She gives it to the treasurer, but we've never.
But
got
could
it.
she provide that to us so that we could be on top of that?
Right. That's some of the things we wanted to list out. And like, what is a delinquent tax? Is it when you've missed your first quarter payment, or is it when you've missed the year? So,
Well, if she has a procedure for what she considers delinquent, then she could compile that for us, and we could have it under our report section, and we could
Right.
regularly discuss it, which also might be helpful in terms of just people understanding that we are on it, and it's not just something that goes by the wayside that we're not thinking about.
because they pulled out this $225,000 piece of paper the other day, and I was like, I haven't seen this before, and that's when I went in and went back the 9 years that I could find and did comparisons.
I will say, I think that Steve says it very bluntly, which is something's not working. So I think it is important for us to engage with Becky about something's not working or could be working better, and what are ways to get it to work better. And so I think she's willing to meet with us, and we can have that conversation with her.
Okay.
When we move to the highway, I just want to, when we move to the highway fund, very pleased to report that we have what they call fund balance / surplus, and that covers the $80,000 that we came into fiscal year 25 with from fiscal year 24. And I know that was raised at the town meeting, which is what's the plan on that. Well, the plan worked quite well, I will say. We met regularly, we brought in lots of money. Jeremy was very tolerant about us getting in his stuff. And as a result, we did well in highway. The question will be, what do we do with the funds? What do we recommend to the taxpayer we do with the surplus? Member was pretty adamant that with FEMA being uncertain in the future, towns really need to build in a emergency infrastructure fund. So that may be a recommendation that comes out of that.
So could you clarify, is the highway today in surplus or in deficit?
Surplus.
Okay, it says in deficit, so I just want to make
Oh
sure
my gosh,
that
I wrote the wrong.
229 figure is the surplus.
I apologize, that is.
Thank you, Nick, because I was a little confused there too.
Yeah, now I'm a lot
She's been telling me for a week and a half, oh, we got surplus, we got surplus.
Yeah.
So I looked at that, I'm like, oh boy.
I apologize.
Okay, so
Which
I'm glad
is it?
somebody caught that.
now I can
It's surplus.
It's a $229,000 surplus?
Yes,
After you factor in the $80,000 deficit.
That's
from,
good.
No, it's not gonna be 229, it may still be 200. You gotta see what gets posted after tonight's meeting.
We had a lot of unexpected truck repairs this year that put us way over budget on some of those lines. But we came in under special projects because we had allocated money for the Stonehenge Bridge, which was covered by the Historical Society. There's money there. Paving contract, budget was way under, so we were able to grab some money there.
But that was a result of conversations every 2 weeks after a select board meeting. We would meet and we would have those conversations about what has to be spent, what we don't have to spend, and where we get more money.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of. Okay, so I think that's it on the summary. You have attached to the summary some reports, the balance sheet report for the 100 fund and the 200 fund, and a budget status report that covers both funds as well.
Can I just ask a quick question? On
Put
the,
that in the-
no, I'm very excited about that number because that's a larger number than I thought it was gonna be. So if we're having this surplus in the highway and there's this recommendation from Nemrick about keeping a certain percentage for emergencies and stuff like that, I understand. As we spoke about at the meeting, that that's a decision for town meeting what to do with that surplus. So we just make note of that, and then when we go to write the articles for town meeting, we
I
write
think
one,
that's
or
what we do.
we're gonna continue this conversation this year. How's that work?
we put it in a folder for when we're getting ready to do town report and write articles, and then we come up with an article if we choose to.
But you're building a budget in November, and you need to know. I mean, I worked with Jordan for my 6 years, and he wanted $75,000 of surplus money left in the highway department every year, and then the rest was to offset taxes raised. That was his direction at the time.
Did you need an article to do that, or
No.
just do it?
Well, again, Darlene says we do, but so I have no idea. But I remember Jordan saying keeping, a certain percentage or 75.
I remember that being budget discussions.
Yes. But now there's this issue of if FEMA no longer gets funded, having money aside for disasters is what she's raising. So I assume that our highway committee will continue to meet because we're going to still be faced with challenges, but,
And I think it's been productive.
and I think that's it on
Okay, so then we will move on to grant coordinator.
Alright, I can be quick. So I just wanna point out, we have 4 highway grants going on for this summer, basically. And those are all in the works. We're meeting with different people to talk about next steps on something like the structure on Bridge 43, which is more a project that's gonna be funded over 2 fiscal years instead of just 1. And then other things like grants and aid and the road erosion inventory, those are all gonna get discussed within the regional this week. Jeremy's gonna meet with them. The paving on Grafton Road, Jeremy's gonna follow up with Basin again and ask them when they're gonna start. They said possibly July, but they're not sure yet.
Last time I had talked to them, we were thinking July, but we wasn't sure.
So, and then, just in terms of highway, I wanted to report that we got feedback that we ended up receiving for fiscal year 26, a Better Roads Program competitive grant, category C stream bank. That's on Simpson Brook Road. The total project cost is $24,500 and the match is $4,900. That'll happen, in our next fiscal year. We also received word that we're gonna get another of the grants and aid and then another structures grant. This one's for an engineering study. We were approved for that. We're awaiting the grant agreements on all of these. And then the start date can get assigned once we get those grant agreements, and we should be seeing those in the next couple weeks. The engineering study is for a total project cost of $27,500 and our match is $5,500. That'll be for Bridge 41 on West Hill Road. So the theory is that we'll do Bridge 43 in the next 2 years, and then we'll do Bridge 41. That's the next one coming up. So we've already started the process for funding both of those projects. So that's highway.
And the grant match money is in one account in highway. Is it in special projects or?
good question.
We budgeted
Reserve
for
account.
it, right?
We should have a
Structures
reserve.
reserve that we passed last.
Yes.
This
Yeah, the 200 is in there. The 200 for Bridge 43 is in there.
Yeah.
Because that's what we earmarked it for. And then for the town things going on, I wanted to, there's 2 things that I wanted to ask the select board about. One of them was we just got our reimbursement for the Vermont State Preservation Grant for the fixing of the slate roof. That reimbursement is $6,281. I wanted to ask the select board if we could return that money to the town hall repair fund that was established at town meeting last year, not this past town meeting, because that's where we had taken the money from. So that reimbursement was just processed on June 4th, and I was hoping that we could motion to return that money to that fund. Additionally, we received some MTAP money that we didn't expect to get from Preservation Trust of Vermont, contacted me and said that without a grant agreement and very casually that they wanted to reimburse the architecture plans that we had spent money on a couple months ago for the downstairs bathroom and the outside access to the building. We had spent $4,700 on those architecture plans, and they said that if we make sure to send over a signed contract when the town progresses on the design for the access to the upstairs of the building, they're happy to just give us this reimbursement for those architecture plans to support the ADA compliance that we're working towards now. I was corresponding with the planning commission about this, and they had known a little bit about this, but at the time that they were spoken to by the MTAP people, unless we were working on upstairs, it wasn't going to be available to us. But they came back and said, this is what we want to do, and we want to reimburse these funds, just let us know when you start working on upstairs, and we'll say, okay, good. So that's another $4,700 that I was hoping that the select board might vote to return to this town hall fund.
Have we received the $4,700?
The $4,700 is in process. They submitted their documents. I submitted our documents that they asked for on 5/29. The reimbursement on their end was approved on 6/16, and it should be here this week. They just asked for our W-9 from Elaine 2 days ago, I believe. Today's Tuesday, so I got that email on Friday. On Monday, Elaine sent it to me, but it was embedded in a document for historic preservation, so I just asked her if she could separate the two documents and send it to me again so I can give it to them. But what they told me was, she has not done that. That was my quick response to her email. But that money, they sent it to their bookkeepers last Thursday and said that we should see it this week.
Are there any ramifications with these for the end of year and closing books on Friday?
No.
So if we don't put it back in the reserve until Monday and it goes back in the reserve as of July 1st?
I don't think that's an issue.
I don't,
Fiscal
okay.
year, I don't think.
They didn't mention anything about
No,
this.
I'm not they, our bookkeeping and,
I don't think so.
Okay. It was surprise money that we had no idea that we were going to be getting, that they reached out to us about. I said, sure, we should accept that. That's great.
do you want to make a motion to how you would like it?
Sure, should I make two separate motions, one for preservation and one together? I would like to make a motion to return the $6,281 reimbursement from Vermont State Preservation and the $4,700 from the MTAP. Well, it's actually coming from
Preservation.
No, it's coming from, Preservation Trust of Vermont to the Town Hall Repair Fund.
Second.
Reserve.
Second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah, let's have it.
And just for upcoming projects, I just want to quickly let you guys know, Jeremy and I met with Colin Brown from Linden Regional about their bike and pedestrian program. They actually offer 3 different grants under that umbrella, and we're applying currently for 2 of them. One of them is to do the sidewalk in front of the high school. It's about 200 feet. That would be a 50-50 match. That could be funded as far out as fiscal year 28. We don't have to fund our match. It would be preferable to do it in fiscal year 27, but we decided to go ahead with the application because we knew we had time to fund for that. He said that Colin said the project cost could be between $75,000 and $85,000, and the match would be anywhere between $35,000 and $45,000. So that would be repairing the sidewalk. We thought we could either try to get something really big that takes 5 years and repair the sidewalk all the way down, or we could start with something reasonable that we know we can fund in the next fiscal year or 2. And
What about the grant opportunities that we talked about, like Newfane did?
so that's next. So that's the one application that we're gonna do. He had mentioned that we're excellent candidates for this grant because our town, and our town's specific location has the schools and the town hall and the post office, the library, and the hospital. So he felt like we were really, like we could possibly get funded for this. So that deadline for that application is in July, and then I guess if that grant agreement comes back to us, that's when the select board can decide whether or not they want to accept that. And then build it into our upcoming budgets. The next thing that we were doing under the bike and pedestrian program is a town scoping study. That's an overall study for our entire downtown to talk about our sidewalks. Do we want to add sidewalks? Do we want to fix our sidewalks? Do we need more crosswalks, parking, different improvements that could happen to the town? The total project on that, it's an 80-20 split, so a little bit better for us. It would total cost would be 60 grand, and we would be on the hook for somewhere between 8 and 12,000, but he said possibly by the time it's
So
all
that's a
executed.
study, no work.
That's 12,000, yep, so that's a study. What happens is, I'll just read what I wrote. Sorry. Grant funds would be used to hire an approved firm to conduct a scoping study for our downtown area to help us plan to add or improve sidewalks, crosswalks, parking, etc. This project would take a few years start to finish. Townsend would be reimbursed 80% of the cost to hire that engineering firm suggested by the program, and there would be required public comment sessions. And the town would get basically a lot of control over the design. It would be up to us to give input and make decisions along while you build this plan over a couple of years. Then there is absolutely you don't have to do everything in the plan. You plan all out what you would do to fix all of your infrastructure. You get a big number assigned to it on how much it would cost, and then the results of the study would give the town an overall view of the possible infrastructure, wayfinding, pedestrian improvements, complete with cost and local impact estimates. The town is then free to use this scoping study to plan future projects. It realistically could shape the work and funding goals of the town for the next several years. The town is free to use the results as they see fit and in no way required to follow the advice or complete every suggested improvement. Scoping studies are helpful for future infrastructure projects because it's good for several years, and it's often a required first step in certain projects, especially when you're dealing with V-Trans, because we have Route 30 that comes through here. So if we want to fix a sidewalk along Route 30, it's a different process than just doing something on our own, like on Route 35 or something like that. So these are good steps to take when you can, and if we can get grant funding to cover 80% of that, we were feeling like that was a good step to take, yes.
I just want to point out, if you haven't seen it, we did a similar thing in 2000, where we did the scoping study for the sidewalk to Herman Village.
Okay. So maybe they would look at that, take that into account. Something.
It's in the lister's office on the top shelf.
So that's what we were thinking when we met with
And
them.
what I heard was that Newfane would never have gotten the 800,000 without the preliminary feasibility study.
Yeah, you have to, these are those necessary
Put
first
them in
steps.
front of them, and then the big money can follow.
Yeah, and we have issues with our sidewalks, and we have issues with crosswalks and different things like that, so it doesn't hurt to try to get the process going and then kind of help us piece things together going forward. So I'll stop there. I had other stuff,
Okay.
but I can stop there.
We can let you talk next week too.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, now, and I apologize about the meeting going long in the two firehouse water filtration system. We had a meeting with Glenn today. Do you want to summarize that, Connie?
At the last select board meeting, there was an estimate submitted for a water filtration system to accompany the new boiler that's going in. It was discussed about reaching out and seeing if we can get some other estimates, so Katie will report on that. If we're gonna move on it, it would be good to move on it in fiscal year 25, which we would be making a decision tonight and instructing the treasurer to pay any kind of invoice or quote before on Wednesday or on Friday at the latest. So I don't know if Katie has other quotes that she was able to find, or if we are still just at this one.
I didn't get them in time. I have somebody that wants to look at the building tomorrow, somebody else that's putting together, so Cushing and Sons that wants to look at the building at 9 a.m. tomorrow, and they are scheduled to do that. I spoke to Glenn, and someone's gonna be at the firehouse. Lind Well Drilling is, the secretary gave me a list of questions I was able to answer from our specs over here, as Rob and I had discussed. Rob gave me a list of people to call, and so she's taking that back to her people, and they're putting together an estimate for us based on what we were interested in. Green Mountain Well is interested in visiting the building, but they have not said when yet. He had asked me some questions, I asked Glenn, sent those answers to him, and I'm waiting for his response. And Jeffers is overbooked and does not have time to look into it for us. So there is a possibility of other estimates. I'm just not sure when they're gonna come in. And I will say that through those conversations, some people, based on the water test results, had a couple different ideas, although I did not tell them everything listed on here because.
Is there a way to hold this money over?
I mean, I think that we're already overspent on particular line items.
But not in,
Not in the fire department.
in the budgets. That's what we talked about with Glenn today. And I'd like to wait and hear what the other estimates are, but I'd like to know if we can hold the money from this current year. Do we instruct a reserve? How do we do that? What does the board feel?
That would be preferable to me. I don't know how to do that, but.
I don't think we can do that at the time of year.
You can,
Create a reserve right now.
oh, not create a reserve. I think you can roll over, but
Well, yeah, we can roll over.
But I don't know if we can do it into a specific account. I don't know.
But we have rolled over the fire department money in the past. And so we could roll this over so that it's just a thought.
oh, can I raise?
Yes.
If we're operating at a deficit, is there money to roll over?
Why not? We're no longer operating at a deficit because we have the influx of cash.
Right, because we think it was 12,000, it's offset by 45.
It's no longer 12,000, it's more than 12,000.
It's less than 45.
I think it's less than 45.
Yeah.
The town has a business relationship with Lime. They put the water into the town barn. I don't know what else they did for municipal buildings here, but it seems like if you already got a relationship with a reputable company, that might help you be able to make your decision a little more quickly.
Right. Well, we now have a couple of companies that can do that for us. It's just timing and money that I'm.
The Cushing and Sons people got right on it. That guy was like, can I come there tomorrow? So, see what he says. He's gonna do his own test of the water and take a look at everything.
All right, where does that leave us, folks? We haven't paid it, we haven't held money, we're just passing by it. Oh, well,
Well,
I'd like to see some more quotes.
I would too, but
I guess what Ally was asking,
we just let the year close and,
we have some money left in the fire department fund, right?
right.
That, we were saying if we're gonna wait for the quotes, is there a way to hold on to that money to use it?
Ally and I met with Glenn today and went over the numbers. So Ally, I don't know if you want to address it here. I think it was going to be addressed in another area, which is the monies that are reportedly owed to the town section, maybe it was going to be dealt with there. But the idea would be if there's money still in the general fire department budget, could we pay for the entirety of the boiler, not just the down payment of the boiler, and pay for the filtration system, which we may not be able to if we don't have the decision on the estimate, and then deal with the monies. Line items may be overspent or underspent, but the whole of the department is under budget.
And that 23,000, that's the amount, so that would possibly be the amount we were requesting to roll over.
Correct, and
Well,
then,
not all of it, because some of it would be used to make the town whole. Right, the 1,500.
to make the town whole, I thought you said town hall. Yeah, I don't know how it works with the surplus and deficit piece of it.
I think if we've rolled funds in the fire department before, if we had a number, we could possibly motion for that and see what people
We
say.
could, but I hope it doesn't put us into a deficit position again.
Oh, okay.
But I guess we can just hope for that, right?
Or we could decide what we want to try to pay in fiscal year 25 and what doesn't get paid in fiscal year 25. for instance, you could decide to pay the 12,000 on a new boiler, since there is money in the department. You would deficit spend some lines, but you know the money's there, you could pay for the entire boiler. You could make the town whole on the $1,500, and that could happen in fiscal year 25.
So should we entertain a motion for that and then leave the filtration system unpaid until
Yeah,
next year?
because We're gonna have to,
Yeah.
That seems safe.
I don't know if Glenn wants to offer an opinion, maybe not, but he's on.
You might be asleep in front of the air conditioner.
So the reason we're revisiting the boiler is because we thought we, last time, motioned to pay the deposit, right? And then we were gonna pay the remainder after the work was completed in the next fiscal year. So we could possibly right now motion to pay that whole amount,
Correct.
since we know we have some money. All right, I'd like to make a motion to pay the remainder of the balance for the purchase of the new boiler.
All right, any further discussion?
Paid in fiscal year 25.
In fiscal year
To
25,
direct the treasurer to pay it.
Correct.
to direct the treasurer to pay that remainder in fiscal year 25.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Nobody's opposed? Okay, then we go on, it's my thought maybe we'll push the cardboard and compost to next meeting. Let's do a quick Taft field maintenance only because the grass grows, etc. I did this map of what's where. And it needs to be paved twice a year. And the Little League field is being mowed by the town. The Grace Cottage Hospital is mowing the Townshend Hospital leach field area. And so Jim is maintaining the perimeter, the 5-foot perimeter. He's back, by the way. And so all that's up is contacting the guy to hay the field. How does the board feel about that? Anybody want to make a motion?
Will you make a motion?
To contact about a field haying. In the past, somebody's hayed the field and they take the hay as payment.
Isn't that what the document there is on the description? Was, at the last meeting, I was instructed to put together an outreach to see if anybody was interested. There was questions raised about how do we describe it. That's what that document is there. Is that the outreach that the select board wants to be put out? And there's some questions, I guess, that have to be answered.
And some of this answered them, like Jim is doing the perimeter, what the West Street sewer area is. So basically, should Connie put this out so we can get somebody to hay the field?
These are all the questions answered.
Right, that's what.
Okay.
Do you have a list of possible people to hit the
We had 2 people, and one is not interested, and one was interested, but he'd have to be contacted. But we didn't know if we should put it out to more. I mean, it's not really a matter of money, so I don't know that we need to follow an RFP.
Ben and Sarah do a lot of local.
Well, that was one of them, yeah.
But there is a question about the cemetery portion of it. And that the cemetery commission was willing to consider compensating somebody for doing.
Right, well, what I would think on that one is if, Mr. McGillicuddy is gonna do the haying, then Charlie can call him, and we stay out of it. So, how do you folks want to proceed?
I think you're raising your hopes pretty high for 2 cuttings.
You think 2 cuttings isn't enough?
No, I
Or you
think
think
you'd be lucky if you get one done.
Okay, well, ask for the moon and take a start.
That's because it's not great hay, so.
No, just, there's not very many people doing it. There's plenty of fields out there that's where weather is all screwed up. I mean, there's a multitude of things that could come up and kick you in the rear end. So what I'm getting to is, it's, you'd be lucky to get it done once, never mind twice.
Okay, well, but answer my question, what do you feel about, should it go out to further people to apply, or should we take the one person that expressed interest?
Flip a coin.
Give it to the person that expressed interest. Not many people told they're hanging, putting it around.
So are you making a motion that I should contact that person? I'm happy to.
Sure.
And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Jeremy has his hand up.
Oh,
Ben's been doing it the last couple of years, he's been doing it once a year, late in the season, because it's not great hay, he uses it for his goat hay. So, and it's been, you know, he's getting it knocked down once a year, and it looks good when he does it, so he gets us out to the edges as best he can. There still remains who's gonna do the edges though.
This is just for the field, not for the trail maintenance.
Jim said he was gonna do the trail maintenance.
We already did once.
Yeah.
Just now.
Yep. And then there's the West Street sewer needs to keep theirs. Their sewer is on our land, but I don't think myself we should get too overly involved in that.
Are they responsible for mowing that?
They always have been.
Because I don't think it's gonna get done.
It was done last year and it looked beautiful. So we have.
So I don't know what the motion is, and can I just read it to make sure I have it correct? Motion to contact the interested person. That's how it was phrased. Should we use the name?
Yeah, that Low, L-O-W-E. To have Ally do that, and it was seconded, and then all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Abstaining?
I'll abstain.
Okay. All right, gravel crushing invoice, are we good with that?
That was just some information.
Yeah.
That's what we're gonna.
Old business fire department monies owed to the town. This is different than the other monies. If you recall back a couple of meetings ago, there was like $13,000 or $14,000 owed from 2019 by the fire department as per the,
There's no document.
by the treasurer and NIMRIC's accounting. And then there were subsequent meetings, and that amount that's owed is down to, how much, Connie?
1,500 and change.
And is Glenn,
Glenn is still on.
okay.
I'm unmuted. Did you need something?
We're just to the point where we're talking about the 1,500 and change.
Okay.
I think the recommendation is that we do the same thing you did with the boiler.
So what we did you hear about what we did with the boiler, Glenn?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good. So, Connie, can you say it in words,
I'm
that,
sorry, I was trying to find the exact amount.
The exact amount is $1,578.79.
And the recommendation coming out of the discussion with Glenn today is to use the funds available in the fire department as a whole to
absorb that?
to absorb the reimbursement to the general fund. So again, there'd have to be some record keeping that we have to talk to Elaine about, like which line item it would designate or show that they are taking that amount, $1,578, to go back into the general fund, or to stay in the general fund, for the purpose of making the town whole, I guess, or reimbursing.
Okay,
But the
so,
money's there, so,
we make a motion to have the treasurer
to direct the treasurer.
by the close of the year to account for the $1,578.79
Out of the fire department.
out of the fire department budget. So that's the motion, I guess.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? I'm fading fast, guys. Okay.
Any questions, we need to vote.
Okay, yeah. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. So we're set, Bud. So new business is, you're welcome. New business is setting the tax rate. We are not setting the tax rate now. We are talking about setting the tax rate, what we need to do to set the tax rate.
My understanding is that it all starts with the grant list and the state education. And those are the two major factors to be able to calculate what the select board would consider for setting the tax rate. I don't believe that we've gotten this information from this state yet on the education. Elaine usually tells us when we get that. And I know that Helen has been working diligently to get the grand list together. She can speak to that if you have any questions. What we do know is in order to meet the deadline of getting tax bills out in time for the August tax collection, we will need to set the tax rate by the 15th of July. So it would require holding a special, most likely it will require holding a special meeting on the 15th, because maybe we'll get all that information by the 8th when we hold our regular meeting, but I think we should be prepared to meet on the 15th.
Okay, is there an action needed or just information?
It's just information.
Okay. The Wyndham Regional Contract for Consulting on Ditching and Culverts.
If I can just address that, Jeremy and Katie can jump in. So last year, Jeremy was in his first year as road foreman, and we contracted with Wyndham Regional to consult on our summer ditching and culvert grant work. I guess it's not just taking measurements, not just figuring out the sections, but also being prepared, mapping to be able to submit it to the state. We voted to hire Wyndham Regional, can't remember the gentleman's name. Jeff Nugent, to consult as a way of training Jeremy and getting him up to speed. Jeremy has requested that we do it at least one more time, just so he feels like he's confident enough to be able to take it from there afterwards. The cost of this contract would come out of the grant that we already have. And so it'd be up to $1,500, I think, the cost. So it's being suggested that we enter into another consulting contract.
Make a motion that we enter into a contract with Wyndham Regional for the fiscal year 25 grants and aid program support program. Second.
Any further discussion?
I just want to point out that the grant award is somewhere around $17,000, so it says it's either $1,500 or 10% of the grant award, whatever's less, so it'll be that $1,500. Because the 10% of the grant award would be more like $1,700.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now we are on to the Sullivan and Towers contract for auditing the year that's just ending.
So this is the final year, we had a 3-year contract, this would be, I believe, the final year of our arrangement with Sullivan Power. We looked at it, it's pretty standard to what we signed
It's
last year,
boilerplate to
Yeah.
what was last year.
and I think it's the same cost as last year.
Yeah.
Make a motion that we enter into a contract with Sullivan and Powers Co. for auditing of the town accounts.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Caleb's education,
That's I failed to put it in, that's a request to use town hall. I apologize. I didn't put that in.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Caleb's Fun Back to School Funday on August 17th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. I believe this is a nonprofit organization.
do they have insurance? Yeah, they do.
They have insurance.
Yep.
I guess we could waive the fee and authorize Ally Evans to sign on behalf of the board.
Second.
Okay,
Discussion. Do you think they need to list the town or the town hall as a named insured, which is not in their policy? Just list their address. I think that is something that's in our policy, that the town hall has to be named specifically. So that would just be like the only request, is that they,
Okay, I can amend my motion to have them amend their insurance to name the town hall as being covered.
And you second that one?
yes,
any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then this portion of our meeting is going to pause because we're going to go into executive session. And people are welcome to stay if they'd like, or if you have air conditioning at home, go home and put your feet up. Bye, Jeremy.
Sorry.
Should you vote to go to executive session?
Oh, yeah, thank you.
I'll wait till you vote.
And you have to vote whether you want me to.
Okay.
Make a motion to go into executive session pursuant to 1 VSA section 313, part 3.
And I'll second that. And I would like to invite Connie to accompany us. So all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Thank you, Andy. Make a motion to reconvene the meeting after executive session.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then do we say now what the decision from?
Yes.
Okay, so should somebody make a motion of what I should do? If somebody shouldn't make it.
I'll make a motion to have Ally. You want me to read this out?
Well,
I was gonna say.
talk to the treasurer and,
Talk to the treasurer about
a list of items
a
or.
list of items to improve communications with the select board.
Okay, a second. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, opposed? Nobody.
Oh, she was looking to see if I said aye on the first.
Aye, Popeye over there. Do we need to wheel you to the car?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Yours and
Oh, yeah, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed, nobody, let's go home, guys.
Yeah, I have.